The dreaded day for every mother is when two uniformed men come to your door and tell you. They don't have to tell you. They just come. My name is Ginny Luther, and I'm a mom of a fallen soldier. I lost my son 4 months ago to a murder that occurred stateside. I thought I had it handled. He had been to Iraq. He had returned. He was back commanding as an executive officer, and he ended up being murdered by one of his own. And blame doesn't help us heal. Blame only keeps us stuck, so I'm not willing to stay stuck. And in honor of my son, and to keep his legacy of go big or go home, I'm going to turn this tragedy into triumph. Going big means, how can I help every military family in every base in this world feel that they can manage their emotional states, they can find a safe place within, they can still feel connected with their families when things get scary. Go big or go home for Bart started when he was born. He was not a planned baby. He was the power struggle kind of child, and his MO was to throw a major temper tantrum. And so I got into lots of power struggles with him. And I remember one day I had just had it. Here I was working in a psychiatric center as a speech pathologist, as professional as I was and felt. In a moment of disciplining him, I was losing it. And I finally pulled out my wooden spoon, and I remember saying to him, I'm going to take this spoon, and if you do that one more time, this is going to go on your bottom. It was the only thing I knew to do as a last straw. And yet inside my heart felt it didn't feel right. He just got this big smirk on his face, and he turned his little bottom around, he looked at me, and he said, "Spank me, Mommy." And that was a moment that I realized I needed to do parenting different with him. He was not your typical child that responded with your rewards and punishment, and I was afraid of the future for him. And I decided there has to be another way to do this in a way that's going to support him in whatever his journey is in life. And I started researching, and I found that he started to respond to different ways, and I realized the different way was me changing myself. As I watched him grow, he always wanted to be in the military. He wanted to serve the country. He was a second lieutenant as a tank commander, and he was in Fort Hood for 2 weeks before they gave him the orders to go to Iraq. So that's when my heart jumped. That's when my heart really started pounding, because all his life I knew who Bart was go big or go home. I knew that was who he was. So when he returned, he was murdered by one of his own men. And Bart was cornered on a balcony, and he shot 5 rounds into his head. The first one killed him instantly, but it was so horrific. And as he's shooting Bart, it all happens so fast, but the police are shooting him. And he was hit with 5 rounds in his back before he took the gun to his head and shot himself. And fell over on top of Bart. The horror, of course, was that this happened in the United States, and the irony is that he got back from Iraq safe, but here he is in the United States, and he's not as safe here. And he used to tell me that, don't worry about me, don't worry about me in Iraq, because in Iraq these men are very focused. It's here that they have difficulty. So when I was angry, my husband said one day, he said, well, who are you angry at? And I started to name everyone. I said, well, I'm mad at the Army because they didn't send the military police. I'm mad at the dispatcher that she didn't just tell him to get off the phone and jump off the balcony. I'm mad at him because he didn't get off the balcony and save himself. I was mad at The police, because they didn't know enough to turn the sirens off before he went in there dealing with somebody that was in such a state that they should have known. I was mad at everybody. And my husband said, he stopped me for a second. He said, you know, it's really interesting that you've mentioned everybody that you're angry at, including yourself, but you never mentioned the killer. And I thought, wow, it kind of is interesting. I didn't mention him. Isn't that interesting? And I said, I don't know why I didn't mention him. So for the next several days, I pondered that. I just thought that was so incredibly interesting. And then it dawned on me, how could I be mad at him? How could I be mad at this man that was functioning at such a low level that he couldn't be conscious enough to make a choice, or didn't have a safe place to go, didn't on the inside have an internal voice of a safe place to go, didn't know where to go, what to do, how to call for help. And I also, this is the hard thing for me to explain, but there was so much irony in it, because that man was potentially what I was afraid of Bart. He became the person that I was afraid Bart was going to turn into. His call wasn't heard. At some point in his life, he was calling for help, as Bart called for help in the tantrums and everything that he did to help me teach him and find new ways to help him. This man never had that. No one heard his call. So I thought to myself, this is where we need help. We just need help. Then when I went back to Texas, they said, well, let's go to roll call. Now, roll call is something that they do before the weekend starts or any kind of leave starts. They congregate all of the troops together in the battalion, and they start to tell them all the rules for the weekend. And they're rules for good behavior or military behavior that's respectable. Basically, there are 4 rules in the Army. First, you can drink, but don't drink and drive. 2, don't do drugs. 3, don't beat your wife. And 4, if you get a woman pregnant, take responsibility. And I was in awe by that, because first of all, I started thinking, well, they have these rules, and they have these rules because they must have a problem. What it really says to me is they're all struggling with impulse control. They're all struggling feeling safe. They're all struggling trying to feel connected. And so when I went to Texas, one of the things all the soldiers kept saying to me is every time they saw me, they said, hey, there's the mom of Go Big or Go Home. And I realized that that was their nickname for Bart, because that's his motto in life was, if you can't do it at 110%, just don't do it at all. That means that I've got to go big or go home. How can I help every military family in every base in this world feel that support and balance, so that they can manage their emotional states? What if the specialist had been taught skills that help him to self-regulate his emotional states, skills that help him to function from the highest centers of his brain, so he'd be connected enough with himself that he would know that doing harm to others or himself was not the only choice that he had. And so what I want is for all children, parents, and I want to help teachers to be able to have those skills themselves, so that they can begin to regulate their emotional states. They can begin to access their brilliance. So I want to talk to Michelle Obama. I know Michelle Obama said her goal is to deal with military families, and that just clicked for me. Going big for me is the same as living up to my convictions that all people need to have a voice that can be heard. And the only way I know to do that is to take the baton, if you will, from Bart and move forward with it by helping others, all families in the military, learn the skills that help them to be able to self-regulate, feel safe and connected with their families, so that a tragedy like this does not occur.